What's up, guys? I've been rebuilding, well, I shouldn't say rebuilding, I've been restoring this 26-foot Outboard and this 225 horsepower engine for the last 2 months. And right now we're checking for spark. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can check for spark. This way is the safe way that I personally like to do. A lot of people will connect all your spark plugs, turn it on, and pull it out one by one. And if you hear the engine do something different, then that cylinder has spark. I'll tell you why you shouldn't do that. Because a big ass engine like this, if I do that, and if my finger crosses too close to that spark plug like this, that voltage is going to jump from this boot straight through my finger, and it's going to make contact with that. It's going to complete the circuit. It's going to ground me out. I've done it before. It's one of the most painful things I've ever done. It's almost impossible on a big engine like this to unground yourself because there's just so much power going through these plugs. Don't do that. It's not safe. Trust me. You might get a little shock, but if you get grounded out, I promise you, you're going to regret it. So, what I do, I unplug all the plugs, right? The wires. I only put in one wire, okay? Now, I'm not going to hook up water to this because we are going to drop a new impeller in, which is why I'm not hooking water up. So, and we're not going to keep the engine running. We just want to hear if this thing hiccups, coughs, sneezes, anything that indicates that cylinder is getting fire. So I'm going to crank it over. If it does anything at all, that means it has spark. Okay, we know that that one's good. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing this, guys. I was actually doing this step today because this boat, I took it out for the first time and it wasn't running right. It only went up to like 3,000 RPMs out there in the water. So I was testing this side of the bank and these all checked out perfect, okay? When I went to this side of the bank, not one of them had spark. Not one single cylinder on this side had spark. I replaced the stator and the timer base. So the only thing left is the power pack. And when I started looking closer to these wires, this is the boot that goes onto the coil. This thing was hanging by one little strand of wire. The corrosion got to it. Something you'll know about wires that are just super old and ready to be changed is that they'll be so hard to bend. They're like the stiffest, they're like as stiff as metal. A wire that's in good condition should be somewhat bendable without using too much effort. Wires that are real old, they're going to be a lot harder to move. So this one has spark. Let's test that one just so you guys know for the video. If it does so much as a sneeze, that means that that cylinder is good and that cylinder has spark. So there we go. That one's got spark as well. And like I said, guys, I already know that this whole bank has spark on this side. But just for the sake of the video, and just so you guys don't get grounded out, because I've done it before, trust me guys, it's really not worth it. If you're gonna do this test, make sure you're gonna, make sure you have water into that lower unit, because I'm putting in a new impeller. That's why I'm not doing it. Okay. It's apparent that this whole side of the bank clearly has spark. It's not gonna run long on one cylinder. If you have a ton of compression, it might run a little bit, but more chances than not, it's not going to. Whoops, I'm supposed to pull these out. Try to get those away, because that spark will jump. So, this is the bank I'm having a lot of trouble on. And I originally thought it was perfect. I thought everything was good because these 3 cylinders are working. When I turn the engine on, the engine cranks right up. It doesn't really skip a beat. But when you put this engine in the water under load, pulling a huge heavy boat, this thing's lacking a ton of power that is much needed. So We're gonna test this side. Even though I know it's not gonna spark, you're gonna see it's just gonna crank, 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 crank. Nothing's gonna happen. And I'm not gonna crank it too long, just because I know that that side is completely shot. So if one of your banks, like mine, are not cooperating, not having spark, the first thing you should check is this black and yellow wire. You should unplug it, try it again. If it now has spark, that means there's a problem with either your kill switch or your harness, somewhere along those lines. If you don't have spark when you do that, you should, just for the sake, you should unplug both temperature switches, try again. If you still don't have it, then you got to look elsewhere. If you have, in my case, I know for a fact, obviously it's the power pack, because the other two components under there are new, and I know for a fact the flywheel magnets are perfect, and I know that the engine's cranking as fast as it should be. With that being said, if you don't, if your parts under there are pretty old, you're gonna have to troubleshoot the entire thing. It's easy for me because, to be honest with you, all I had to do is check the coils. If the coils are sparking on this side, then the coils are good. So the second I pulled off that coil, I noticed that this wire right here was, it was ripped pretty much in half. These other wires in here, I can't really tell the shape of them, but I know that just by feeling this, just by trying to bend this wire, it doesn't want to move. It's so, it's extremely hard. It's like a rock. Wire should move pretty freely like this. So I hope this video helps you guys. Make sure you hook up the hose. I'm putting a new impeller just to be safe. So yeah, don't do what I just did. Another thing you should check is, you should check all your ground wires just to make sure. So like with me, in my instance, I painted the block because I wanted to just look a little nicer. With that being said, you don't want to paint over any grounds. So this right here would be a ground. That right here, well, actually no, it'd be the top one. This right here would be a ground, so I didn't paint over that. Don't paint over your grounds. More grounds right here. There's obviously a bunch more somewhere. There's the bottom of these coils are grounds. I'd stay away from that. Don't paint under your flywheel, guys. Don't do anything you don't know. Paint pretty much the stuff that's bare, that has nothing attached to it. Just a piece of advice. So now that I know for a fact that the power pack's bad, I know at least this ignition system, once the new power pack comes in, it's going to be perfect. This boat is going to be very reliable. I'm going to be able to go real far in it with a lot of trust. And it's going to pick up speed. I'm telling you, this thing is going to be moving quick. I'd say about 35, 40 miles an hour. And for some of you guys, that might not sound like a whole lot, but this is a 26-foot boat. This is a huge, heavy boat from 1984. So if this thing does, 40 miles an hour, it's fast. That's fast for the boat, So I hope you guys liked the video. Let me know what you think. Hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.